Risked everything by moving to New York to surprise my pen pal and confess my love, fearing he sees me as a sister. I am originally from Argentina and have been writing letters back and forth with a boy from the United States for about 13 years now. When I was younger, our school received letters from a class in America and we sent some back. Barely anyone in my class got sent more than one, but my partner and I kept sending letters and did for about 3 years. Then we started sending emails, but we also kept sending regular written letters. More time passed and we added each other on WhatsApp and chatted more. So over time it went from monthly at best because of slow mail to weekly to daily. We have video chatted here and there, and it's weird because we have dated other people in this time, but I've never been able to be serious with anyone because I want my first everything to be with him. We used to voice call almost every day on my walk back from class because it lined up with his commute from work. But then he got into a relationship and the pandemic he didn't commute and couldn't talk to me as much with a girlfriend. He is single now. My problem is he definitely views me as a little sister. Argentinian school programs are very long versus the USA, and he graduated early because of advanced classes before uni, so I have been a student for a long time compared to him. He also lives a very different life than me. He runs every morning, goes to the gym a lot, is a tall and strong person with high activity and a lot of friends. I am very frail from a muscle disease I got when I was younger and did physical therapy for a long time to be able to walk and now run a little but not much. I am like 168 centimeters and 50 kilograms, so I look weak. I lost many of my friends when I got sick and am much quieter. I know his exes have been fit gym girls and very outgoing. My employer had an opportunity to work on site in New York City, and I applied for it and got it. I moved like a week ago, and am in company supplied housing for the next 6 months. I want to meet him in person for the first time and tell him how I feel, but I am very afraid he won't feel the same. I never told him about it or that I'm here, but we always talk about how he should visit me or I should visit him and how he'd show me this city. I want to just visit his apartment like in the telenovelas, but I know that is awkward. He bought a really nice apartment during the lockdowns and I often joked I would like to see it in person and he always said to stop by, and it was funny because I obviously couldn't being so far away, but now it is a subway away. I think it is worth taking the chance and risking our friendship because I don't feel like I can move on with my life without at least trying. Update 1. We got breakfast at a place a few blocks from me, and he got there like a minute before me and we hugged at first sight, which was exactly what I needed to feel comfortable and know it wouldn't be too awkward. It felt like talking to any of my best friends or family and felt just as casual as when we talked through text or FaceTime. He had stories saved up. Like he said, there's a bunch of stories he always wanted to tell me, but that you need to do it in person so you can see how the other person responds or because it makes the story more intense. I definitely made it clear I like him though, and he didn't say anything to stop me from being a little flirty. He also paid for me, which I took as a nice sign. We walked around a bit, but I struggled a lot. Not even because of me, but despite wedge shoes he was like 15 centimeters taller and has a bigger stride, and he walks like New Yorkers so very fast. He slowed down for me, but every once in a while he would speed up to pass a smoker. We ended up passing a clothing store and he got me sneakers. I was afraid of it because I do not make a lot and cannot afford much. I'm basically on Argentina pay here, but housing is free. He bought them for me, and I made a whole thing about how I was going to pay him back because I felt guilty and I definitely made it awkward. But he said the shoes looked cute and they felt much better, so I got over it for now. We got into some deep talk accidentally a few times. I joked that I was thinking of surprising him last night, and he said he's glad I didn't. Thank you, commenters, because his flight back was cancelled, so he was on standby all day and was at the airport when he called me last night. He works for a startup and his boss flew her family and my pen pal to Miami because the company is starting to talk buyout, and she told my pen pal to think of a Florida house for the taxes. Plus her kids go to the university there. She wants to hire him for a new business idea she has, and he is seriously considering it because she is his first and only boss and has promoted and developed him a lot. She actually knew the company selling where he lives and gave him an advance on his bonus plus a little more and told him to buy it before the pandemic ended and property in NYC got expensive again. So we started talking about like what do we want to do when we are older and where do we want to be. And I was worried because on TV Miami is a very like party city, and he said that was his concern too, but that there are nice quiet areas and suburbs to raise a family. His grandparents also live in Florida now and they raised him when his parents died, so he said he was also thinking other states but that Florida made the most sense. He did joke he liked the idea of moving to Miami because he likes Latinas, which I thought was funny because none of his exes are, and I took that as a huge hint. We also talked about the love/hate so far with New York and how it's so busy and has everything but also is loud and looks hard to raise a family. When I said I could never live here long term, he asked if I meant New York or America, and I clarified New York, and he asked if I'd really ever be okay with leaving family back home in Argentina, and I said yes very quickly, haha, because Argentina is in a bad spot economically and my family can always visit me if I get a good job in America that can pay for that. Before I left, my family told me to try and find a better company in America and stay here, lol. There are also Messi Argentina and Barcelona and now Miami shirts everywhere. So every time we would see one we'd call it out, and it just felt really fun walking around with him. There's these light carts pulled by bikes that play really loud music, and I've never felt so comfortable in my life that music could make me move, and I felt like shimmying up to him whenever they passed by. So it went very well. He invited me over for dinner next week and I said I'm free tomorrow, which for me is next week, but was super awkward that I just said that out loud, as he definitely meant like Thursday or something, so I will remember that tonight as I stare at the ceiling, but he said Sunday works and that he will get some ingredients tonight. Update 2. It's been a whirlwind to say the least. Sunday I went to his place for dinner really early. I texted him I was bored and asked if I could hang out there, and he's like sure. He has a really nice apartment in the Flatiron and it was something I always would imagine what it looked like. He runs a clean home, and you can tell it's not the kind of clean that someone just put together. When we did the tour, I went through his closets and it's basically only work or gym clothes, which I thought was funny. I really liked the gym clothes and it was almost all from one brand, so apparently their store is like 2 stops away and he convinced me to get some. I then learned that shirts and shorts can be expensive. We went to some jewelry store and I didn't realize at first how much things cost. I just browsed and said what things looked nice as someone set up a trial room. When I found out that it was so expensive I almost threw up and I felt like I wasted his time even coming here, but between the rush of trying things on and him telling me I looked cute and it messed with my brain, and he did get it all for me. And it was a lot. Like I'm embarrassed to say how much it was, that's how bad it was. We went back and he cooked dinner, which he said he enjoys because he works a lot, almost always past dinner, so he'll often have a cooking call with his coworkers where they're either off camera or on camera and everyone's picking up their kids from camp or cooking or at the gym or whatever else. It was probably the fanciest meal I've ever had in my life to that point, no exaggeration. We watched a movie afterwards and talked a ton. We again got into deep stuff, and it's weird, like we've known each other for a decade but haven't met in person and truly known each other in some ways. My friends were always so surprised that I told him so much personal stories and that he would do the same, but it always is easier to tell someone you don't see in person these private things. So how do you measure the time to get to know each other? When do you say you are dating? All that became what we were talking about. The other aspect was getting the super important stuff out of the way, like where do we want to be long term, what kind of life would we want to live, what role for our partners. Him considering moving to Miami is probably the fairy tale story, because if you ask anyone from Argentina where in the US they would want to move, it would probably mostly be LA and Miami. A lot of the Latinos in NYC are from Central America or the islands. Miami, it feels like, is more Cubans, Venezolanos, and Argentinians. I told him my faith is important to me, and I knew he was Catholic, but it was nice to confirm that he wouldn't have a problem with it. I also told him I wanted to wait for marriage to have sex and he said he's cool with that. It's proving difficult because ever since the weekend it's physically distracting me. I can't sleep, I get distracted at work, I cannot stop thinking about it. It's so silly, but it's like being a teenager again. Tuesday we actually went out to a little park date and walk around the area too. And similar, we talked about what we are and what we want to be. I know he's probably annoyed by it, but I asked him if like these are dates and if not can I take him on one, and he said they're like date 0 and that he will take me out on a true first date the next day. We talked about like what we would look like as far as dating, because I am here until halfway through December and then I go back to Buenos Aires. He was open to distance, which was something I was dreading, because a lot of people aren't into that, and so I was afraid he'd say like, oh, we can date again when you're back in the USA. I probably won't get lucky and get a project in the USA again, to be honest, at least not New York. He said if it gets to that point we can talk vacation visas and he can visit me for a few months since time zone is similar and his job is remote flexible. He is going to visit Miami again in a few weeks and invited me because I was so curious about some of the places he was thinking of. I figure if he wants my input or me to come along, he sees a future with me. Today was our first date and I know the commentary will be to slow down, but yeah, I am truly in love with my pen pal more than I thought I could be. He picked me up with flowers. He rightly assumed I didn't have anything to put them in either and had a glass thing, I forget the word for, to hold them. He got me a dress from Reformation, which I had mentioned all the rich foreign workers in my office wear. Like I mentioned it once, and like thousands of things I've said over the past few days, and I know I can't keep having him spend a lot on me, but obviously I cried and embarrassed myself that way. He also got me nice shoes, again. I changed, I made a big deal over how much he was spending on me, and he said that he knows he can't be my affection, but that his love language is gift giving. The dinner was one of those things you see on TV. Like literally it was from the old guy that had a guest appearance on The Bear. I mentioned to him I was watching and he said he wouldn't spoil it, but that one day maybe he could spoil me, and I didn't realize one day would be today. I also didn't know food got that fancy. We then went to see a Broadway show, and that was on my bucket list for my time in New York. Hadestown has an Argentine lead, and so we booked that, and I'm like, wow, first of all it was an amazing performance. If you're in NYC you should see it, but also it was just like the fanciest I've ever felt or lived in my life. Like I come from a middle class background in Buenos Aires, but with the economy the way it is, middle class is just that you're not homeless and can afford food. A lot of the city and country is not doing that well and they're trying to turn things around, but it is not easy. Even if we just walk in the park or hang out at his place, he just makes me feel like everything I say matters, that he hears it, and that I mean a lot to him. And then he dropped me back off at my place, and I have spent the past few hours laying in bed texting my mom and friends. I feel an immense amount of guilt that he spends this much on me. Like I even asked him if he does this for all the girls he dates, and he says no way, it's not good dating in NYC, and that he usually does coffee or lunch dates at most. It makes me feel so special, and I was telling my mom and she said that if it works out, one day we will have kids and it won't matter what happens, that he will owe me, because that is not easy. When my dad called me the other day, he said that it's because I am in his city. If we met in a neutral city or in BA, he would hopefully be as generous, but I would feel more in control. I don't know if I want to though. I know if he visits BA, I would want to show him around and everything, but I like clinging to him sometimes and letting him lead. I will eventually post a follow-up question because there's so much I don't know how to wrap my mind around. Like if I do try and follow to Miami on a visa, it won't be a work one, so I'll not be allowed to make money and I'd be entirely dependent on him, and that makes me feel guiltier. If he visits me, will I actually feel more in control? Do I want or need to? Or am I okay with things if he is okay with it? I also need like sedatives. I don't know how to get urges out of my mind because I never really had to deal with them when I was younger. Even with past boyfriends we didn't do anything more than kiss, and I never felt like I wanted to have sex with them all too much. Also, his boss is like a 50-year-old lady with kids in college who he admits is like a mother figure for him. She actually turned down his application when he first applied to his company, but when the person they selected backed out, they came back to him even though he was a fresh grad and inexperienced. She's been a corporate finance leader for years and is CFO there. She helped him buy his apartment, wants to start a business and hire him in Miami, and has invited him out to vacations. He thinks it's because she knows he doesn't have family and would otherwise spend Christmas and stuff alone. I don't mean to imply there's anything inappropriate there, I really don't think there is, but I am jealous of her as she's super smart and successful, and of him because he has a mentor that pushes him every day while I do not, and I don't think any of my peers do. I also have in the back of my mind, like, why wouldn't he just date someone like himself, someone super ambitious and similar to one of the leaders I work with? Wouldn't he make a lot more combined income and be more comfortable and be able to be fancy every day versus every once in a while? Her husband is also in finance and makes a lot, like he could have that? Now on to second story. Fiancé's estranged sister ruined our wedding plans by inviting his toxic parents. Now we're eloping in Europe to save our marriage. My fiancé Charles and I have been together for 6 years. We were getting married in end of November. He is the most warm-hearted, loving and caring man I have ever met. I love him of all my heart and he is the most important person in my life. He have a very restrained relationship with his parents, since childhood. He moved out of his childhood house when he was 16, because he wanted to make his decisions in life and get educated. His parents have never been there for him, not even when he was 19, he is today 32, he got cancer and was very sick. They never visited him in hospital or was there for him. They have always been taking care of his sister, the golden child. After some years of struggling and fighting cancer, he started his own company and it became a successful business. For 6 years ago he bought my parents' neighbor house. My parents liked him from the start. I met him first time in that autumn and we just fell in love from the first day we meet. So I quit my job in the city, moved to the countryside and got a new job here. Everything has and still are great between us. My parents love him and it's kind of the son they never got. My fiancé loves spending time with my dad, fishing and hunting, and they enjoy their company together and learn new things in life. During this 6 years I have never met his parents. He have explained to me and my parents he doesn't want them in his life because they are toxic. Some stories from his childhood he have been telling me. Even to my father he have spoken about his childhood. I talked with my parents about it and they just told me to respect Charles and let him deal with this issue because it's not up to me to decide. My sil, I actually like her, but Charles tell me I am naive, she is not a good person and will do everything in her power to gain power over me and she just want to get something out of it. Well, we have planned our wedding and it's not a big wedding, it's our choice. We will be around 50 guests and my parents have insisted that they will pay for their only daughter and child's wedding. The wedding is set in 6 weeks' time. Everything is booked and the venue and meals, free bar and everything is done. We invited my sil and her husband and their kids to our wedding. Some of Charles' cousins and his grandparents on his father's side that he has very good connections with and they are just lovely. Yesterday Charles got a text from his mother. She was overwhelmed of joy that she and Charles' father was invited. And she texted him so happy she was because his sister had been visiting them and told them that they were invited. I was home and Charles arrives home from work furious and angry. I have never seen him so upset and he was shouting loud, not on me but on the situation. My parents who were in their garden could hear and they went over to see if everything was okay. He was so angry at his sister, his parents, and then dropped some other stories from his childhood that made my parents' mouth wide open. I started to cry about what he told me. We spoke all evening and I can't remember when we fall asleep. Today I withdraw my sil invitation to our wedding and I told her to text her parents and tell them they are not invited. She called me immediately and told me that I was selfish and arrogant and awful person. I had to understand that she did this to build a bridge and a new relationship for Charles and his parents. I told her she has not any right to interfere in my finances relationship with his parents and this is something between Charles and his parents. I just told her bye. After this I have got some horrible text messages from Charles' extended family that are not even invited in our marriage. Charles is still upset about it and told me today this is the reason why I didn't want you to get involved in my toxic family. Now Charles feel that the wedding, who should be a happy day for us, is destroyed and he want to cancel our wedding and just go to my mother's parents who live in Europe and get a small wedding there. He just want to stay away from all his family except for 6/7 family members who he have very good and respectful relationship with. I told him I don't want to go to Europe because then we have lost, then we escape. I want to have my wedding here, but he is afraid that his toxic family will meet up and ruin our marriage that day. I am very sad for Charles. My parents don't know what good they can do for him and me. Maybe I should just go ahead, cancel our wedding here and get married in an embassy in Europe? What's most important now is for you to stop thinking about the wedding for the time being, and think about your marriage. Oop, thank you very much for your message. Yes, focus on our marriage, and this is what we are going to do. It will be a wedding in Norway. The best solution for Charles and for me. Best wishes, update 1. I have read them all many times and I appreciate everyone who has been writing messages to me. So thank you for all the input and good advice. It's been a very busy day. Charles went to work and I had the day off. Charles eventually arrived back home in lunch break and we went to our parents. We talked about it and I showed my mother this post and she read all the comments too. We did cancel over wedding but not our marriage, venues and everything. My mother explained to the catering what has happened and why this happened. They all understood and the venue was cancelled free of charge. The catering was also fantastic and we just lost our deposit, and that's not the end of the world. It's been a busy morning and afternoon. My mother called my grandparents in Norway, we are all going there. Charles is just happy and he called his best man and his wife and his grandparents and asked if they could go, and they all accepted the invitation for Norway. My parents will pay for their tickets and accommodation for their 5-day stay in Norway. We will be altogether 15 from Boston area who will travel to Tromsø for the wedding there. My grandparents in Norway are over thrilled and they will arrange for the dinner and everything there. My maid of honor is super excited that I will have it in Norway so she don't need to travel. Charles' best man and his wife are so happy for this solution. So it will just take around 10 days to get our marriage papers in order, a little different from a marriage in USA. I have apologized to Charles so many times now and today he just told me to stop apologizing and move forward, and this is not going to destroy our life together. I did a terrible mistake, but we seriously believe that his sister in one way or another had changed. Charles has blamed himself today that he didn't say no when I asked him to invite his sister. But this is all on me because I seriously didn't understand. I have blocked all his family on my phone and social media, and so has he, and my parents too. I am thankful for all your messages. I know I wrote it when I was very heated up. And some words might have been expressed in a different way. I will get my dream man and my dream wedding and even my wedding dress that belonged to my mother who haven't been used since 1988. It's all about our marriage, someone wrote in a post, and I totally agree.